I think it's safe to say the 7th console generation is going to go down as one of the best. A slew of beloved franchises such as Uncharted, Assassin's Creed, Mass Effect, Gears of War, Arkham, and Bioshock all got their start during this period, and that's without even taking into account the best-selling game of all time. Old standbys like Mario, Zelda, Metal Gear, Grand Theft Auto, and Halo also held strong alongside series like Call of Duty, Fallout, and Red Dead, which reinvented themselves to reach greater heights than ever before. Honestly, with all this star power, it's a little easy to see how something like Dishonored was lost in the shuffle. However, those who did play it quickly discovered it could go toe-to-toe with any of the heavy hitters I previously mentioned.
Hello, Corvo. Your life has taken a turn, has it not? The Empress is dead. Her precious daughter Emily is lost somewhere in the city, and you will play a pivotal role in the days to come.
Dishonored is a first-person stealth action RPG that's best described as Thief meets Bioshock with a dash of Hitman and a healthy influence from Half-Life.
You were in the wrong place at the right time.
As The Outsider so helpfully summarized, the game casts the player as Corvo Attano, the royal protector for the Empress, who is framed for her murder and the kidnapping of her daughter Emily. This sets him down an epic path for vengeance or justice depending on the player's actions. See, this is a game that puts player choice front and center. However, unlike most titles which do so by having the player pick between options during dialogue trees, which sends them down a branching path, the most important choices you make during Dishonored actually take place during the gameplay, when you decide how you will approach a problem, and by extension how Corvo chooses to avenge his beloved Jessamine. Taking its cues from immersive sims such as Deus Ex, each level in Dishonored is really a sandbox that allows the player to tackle their goals however they see fit. So while simply slashing and shooting your way through the front door is almost always a valid option, you're also encouraged to look for alternate passages, such as rooftops and back alleys. Of course, Corvo has been marked by the Outsider, which gives him some nifty supernatural powers to play with as well. So for example, let's say you do want to opt for a more direct approach, but still don't want to get your hands dirty. Assuming you've leveled up your powers enough, you could stop time and run right through a heavily guarded area, or possess a guard and use them to deactivate security devices. Granted, you can also walk into a room, stop time, and then kill like 4 guards before they even know what's happened if your version of stealth just means never being spotted. However, it turns out indiscriminate murder, no matter how stealthy, does have some downsides. See, a key component of Dishonored is the chaos system, which basically just keeps track of how much collateral damage you rack up during missions. Leaving behind a higher body count leads to higher levels of chaos, which results in more plague victims and rats hanging around the city, and determines which of the endings you receive. Now compare this to something like Knights of the Old Republic, which is one of my favorite games, but you can force choke the shit out of every single enemy you encounter, but as long as you play nice during conversations, then you never actually have to worry about falling to the dark side. But if Corvo spares the High Overseer, yet left a wanton path of destruction in its wake, then Dishonored doesn't just ignore it. You don't get to just choose to be a hero in Dishonored, you actually have to put in the effort, and this type of role-playing where the character is shaped by what the player actually does is one I'd love to see further explored. However, this does tie into one of my major complaints, as Dishonored spoils all this early on when it straight up tells you that a higher body count will lead to a darker outcome. So despite providing the player with a bunch of creative tools and the ability to approach levels in any way they wish, the game actively encourages the player to ignore a large part of their arsenal and adopt a stealthier playstyle for their first playthrough. Also, imagine how much more impactful the high chaos ending would have been if you didn't know it was the bad ending going into it. If somebody just followed their instincts and played Dishonored like a standard FPS game their first time through, only to find out at the end that it was actually their actions which led to such a bleak outcome, it could have been a real gut punch. My only other legitimate gripe with Dishonored is that it doesn't allow the player to carry over their progress for a New Game Plus run, while having many of your powers fully upgraded during the first couple of levels would make you ridiculously overpowered. It's not like that would have been a bad thing. I mean, half the appeal of Dishonored is just playing with all the tools at your disposal, so it's disappointing that there are some levels where your toolkit is always going to be heavily restricted. While you can go back and choose individual missions to replay from the main menu, you're stuck with whatever build and loadout the game decides for you. However, aside from these very minor issues, there really isn't that much to complain about here. More than 10 years later, the city of Dunwall and its inhabitants still pop off the screen and are a testament to the fact that great art design is truly timeless. The whole game just has the City 17 at the height of the Industrial Revolution vibe that's impossible not to fall in love with. The voice cast is also filled with some notable names, and they all do a great job, which is crucial because of the game's economical approach to storytelling. Pendleton and Granny Rags might not get a ton of screen time, but the performances really help to fill in the blanks and make them memorable. Really, the whole Dishonored universe already felt fully established in this first game. There's just a confidence that you wouldn't expect from a studio that hadn't exactly set the industry on fire up to that point. You've got political machinations, hints of a class divide, and ancient sorcery all wrapped up together, and while you never really get a clear view of the bigger picture, that just makes the fleeting glimpses you get all the more interesting. I also have to mention Dishonored's phenomenal pacing, which is becoming more and more of a lost art in single-player games these days. While there are a handful of side activities and encounters, nothing feels like it was added in just to artificially bump up the runtime. Now, to some people, I'm sure seeing the credits roll after only about 12 hours was a negative, but to me, Dishonored felt as long as it needed to be. The last impression a game makes on you is going to be the strongest, so I'd rather a game leave me wanting more than wearing out its welcome. And Dishonored is certainly a game that leaves you wanting more. More than a decade after its release, it remains a unique and engaging experience that offers the player more freedom in one level than most games offer during an entire playthrough. I give Dishonored 11 runes out of 12.